Hi, this is Terry Bates of the Cornell Lake Erie Research and Extension Lab, and we are answering questions about viticulture. Today's question has to do with light interception and vine size. So the fundamentals of vine productivity, not only on a per vine basis but on a acreage basis, has to do with intercepting sunlight, taking the sun's light energy and turning it into chemical energy for vine growth and productivity. So if we take a look at this nice healthy Concord vineyard, and the way I look at a grapevine canopy is very similar to saying that it is a biological solar panel where you're trying to intercept and collect and use as much of the sun's energy as possible. So if you think of a vineyard as rows of solar panels, and if you have very nice uniform distribution of those solar panels and they're all functioning properly, then you're intercepting a lot of sunlight and life is good. But what happens many times is because we are working with biological systems, there is variation within those canopies from vine to vine, and a very obvious situation would be is if you were missing vines per acre, or in this case, missing solar panels. So you're not making the most use of your land area because you are missing solar panels, and that's a very obvious thing. No vines, no solar panels, no light interception. But a lot of times, the situation is much more subtle, where you have vine canopies that are there, you think they're healthy, you think they're functioning well, and they're not. So you're having solar panels that are not working at 100% efficiency, and that lowers the overall productivity of the vineyard and will lower fruit quality in the long run. A second situation that we run into in vineyards is where we have too much canopy per unit of trellis space. So what happens? So say you produced a lot more solar panels than what you needed, and so you stuck them all out in the field, but you stacked them. And what would happen is the solar panels that were here on top would be on top of these ones underneath, and the shade from this set of solar panels would make these ones underneath not work very well. And that's what happens when we have vine growth that is out of control. The shell of leaves on the outside of the canopy are doing just fine. They're the top solar panels, but they're shading out the rest of the leaf area or the solar panels underneath, and making them very inefficient. It would be much more efficient to take those solar panels and spread them out in the vineyard so that they intercepted more sunlight per unit land area and that they weren't shading each other out. And this works very similar with grapevines. So in this case, here's a vineyard and with obvious missing vines. There's holes in the vineyards. All these little pockmarks are actually missing vines, and we could say 30 to 40% of this vineyard actually is missing vines, and so we're losing out on 30% of our land use efficiency by not having. Again, a very obvious situation where the grower needs to go in here and start rectifying that situation. But again, it can be much more subtle, where we have canopies that are there, but some canopies are bigger than others, some are functioning better than others, and there's been a lot of viticulture research done on looking at the effect of vine size and productivity. So as we increase in canopy growth, we go from a canopy that has a lot of gaps, intercepting less sunlight, to one that is essentially maximally filled without a lot of shaded leaf area, and you're going to get the most productivity out of this kind of vine. On the other hand, we can have vines that have too much leaf area and the outer shell is doing a good job, but the shaded stuff on the inside is not. And the best thing to do in that situation is to divide that canopy and take advantage of all this leaf area and intercept more sunlight. And that's exactly what we see in this picture here. This is all vines that are trained to a single trellis wire, and these are the same number of vines, but pruned or trained to two separate wires per unit of row length. So they're spreading that leaf area out and intercepting more sunlight, and these vines end up being more productive just from the simple fact that they can capture more of that sunlight energy. And this is what it looks like on a commercial basis. Here's a single wire vineyard, and here's one that's trained to double curtain, and this vineyard is going to intercept more sunlight than this one. The trick is that you need to be able to give the vines enough water and nutrients that they're going to be able to grow a canopy big enough where you can divide it and be able to fill out those 2 trellis wires, which is not a common situation in most commercial producing vineyards. So what's the deal with vine size? We talk about pounds of pruning weight for grapevines, and we use that as a management tool. So we have a vine that's not growing very well and has a lot of gaps in the canopy. Well, that's not going to ripen very much wood, and during the winter we prune off most of this wood and only leave the fruiting buds that we want. And in the situation here, the vine is growing very well, and it is quite filled out, and it's going to ripen more wood. So when we go to prune this in the winter, we'll actually pile and weigh the cane prunings, and that is just all that pruning weight is just an indicator of how well that vine grew the previous season, and it's a predictor of the potential canopy growth and productivity of that vine for the next year. So as you can imagine, this is a very labor-intensive process, and not one of the fun jobs to do in the middle of the winter is to go around piling and weighing cane prunings from grapevines. So one of the ways we want to get around that is by using sensors during the summer to get a better measurement of that canopy growth. And what we've been doing is using reflectance sensors, pointing them at the side of the canopy in the growing region of the grapevine, and scanning that, relating that measurement to pruning weights in the winter, so we get a nice relationship, and then be able to build these spatial maps of vine pruning weight throughout the vineyard. And in this case, this vineyard in the blue area has lots of canopy growth, and light interception would be a good candidate for using Geneva double curtain, where maybe this vineyard in the red doesn't have as much canopy growth, and the grower needs to go in there and find out if they have a lot of missing vines or weak vines that they need to do some management on.